It's Friday, January 8th, and you're watching The Great Lost Rewatch. Today we're talking about Yeon. Or I think that's how you say it. I'm really bad with Korean. So we start out on the freighter. Saeed and Desmond are waiting around in the sick bay. This note comes through the door, and the note says, "Don't trust the captain." Finally, Saeed and Desmond are going to meet the captain, but before they do, Regina wraps herself in chains and throws herself into the ocean. The captain appears. His name is Galt, I think that's how you say it. Anyway, he tells nobody to jump in after Regina, and he explains to Saeed and Desmond that people on the freighter have been suffering from severe cabin fever. He says it has something to do with the proximity to the island, and Saeed says, "Well, why don't you just move the boat?" And the captain says, "I would if I could, but we have a saboteur on board and our engines have been messed up." The captain then shows Saeed and Desmond the black box from apparently Oceanic 815. He talks about things that we've heard before and this massive cover-up conspiracy, and imagine the kind of funds it would take to pull off something like that, and that is why we want Benjamin Linus. So he says that Benjamin Linus is responsible for this, where Ben in other episodes has told us that Charles Widmore is responsible for this. So we never did get the answer of who did this cover-up, did we, between the two of them? Did we? I can't remember. Freighter doctor then takes Saeed and Desmond to their new quarters, but it's all messy, and there's a huge blood stain on the wall, and he says, "Sorry, that should have been cleaned up," so he calls for the deckhand. We all saw it a mile away because the summer before season 4, ABC announced that Harold Perrineau would be returning to the show. Can you imagine if they hadn't? It would have been one of the greatest shut the front door moments, but they completely ruined it because of publicity, and that just annoys me. Speaking of things that really annoy me, please allow me to take a quick break from talking about this episode to read a letter I wrote to the president. Dear President Obama, I'm a huge supporter of yours and voted for you in the 2008 presidential election. That being said, if you decide to hold the State of the Union on February 2nd so you can talk about the healthcare bill, therefore delaying the final season premiere of Lost, I will vote Republican in 2012. Sincerely yours, Lesley. On the island, Sun is getting incredibly impatient because Saeed and Desmond took off on the helicopter to go to the freighter 3 days ago. So she goes up to Daniel Faraday, says that she's pregnant. She says, "Are you here to rescue us?" And Daniel Faraday says, "That's not really my call." Sun goes to Jin, tells him to pack up food for 2 days, and they're going to head to Locke's camp. Juliet comes and tries to talk to Jin and reason with him about his wife's condition. But none of that works. Jin is very faithful, saying, "Wherever Sun wants to go, I'm going to go." So then Juliet is forced to use desperate measures.
Your wife had an affair.
And even though Juliet had good intentions, I have to say she totally deserved that. Jin is trying to deal with this revelation, so he and Bernard have some, married male bonding time by going fishing. Jin goes back to Sun's tent and says, "I know you did this affair to the man who I used to be, who was unkind and unloving to you, so there's really nothing to forgive." Flash forward to an incredibly pregnant Sun who is having pains, and she thinks that something is wrong with her pregnancy. She gets to the hospital, and the doctor says that the baby is in some sort of distress. He's not sure why, but is there anyone that we should contact for you? And Sun says Jin. Jin is in a hurry, and he's shopping, and he buys this panda bear.
제가 요즘 집중되는 거예요. 아유, 간다니까요.
Once again, they're trying to give us hints, but I'm just not putting together to pay attention to the cell phone rule. Someone steals the cab with the panda in it from him, and his cell phone gets destroyed, so he goes back to the store and says he needs another one, and the shop owner tries to give him a stuffed dragon, saying it's the year of the dragon, which, by the way, was 2000, but I'm sorry that I don't have the Chinese zodiac on memory. Sun refuses to have a C-section, and after a very painful labor, she gives birth to a daughter. Jin gets to the hospital, and we realize that he's gotten the panda and delivered it to some associate from Mr. Pike, and we realize that this is not Jin in a flash forward, Jin was in a flashback, which was incredibly clever and fooled all of us. Sun is in a flash forward, and Hurley comes to visit her and the baby, which she names Yeon like Jin wanted, and they go to visit Jin. Jin is dead? He's dead. Why can Sun and Jin never be happy and together at the same time? An important thing to note is that his grave marks him having died on September 22nd, 2004, which obviously is the same day that Oceanic 815 crashed. And that's where we're going to leave it today, with the death of Jin. Liz, you're talking about Meet Kevin Johnson tomorrow, so I'll see you then.
We're gonna need to watch that again.